My name is Evelyn, and I'm 31 years old. 5 years ago, my life was split cleanly into a before and an after by a lie that wasn't even mine. It didn't happen during an argument or a dramatic family fight. There was no warning, no confrontation, no chance to defend myself. It happened quietly in the most devastating way possible, through silence. I was in the hospital library late at night, still wearing my scrubs after a brutal shift, reviewing notes for an upcoming exam when my phone vibrated. It was a message from my mother. Just one line. We're done supporting lies. Don't contact us again until you're ready to tell the truth. I stared at the screen, confused, my heart hammering in my chest. What lie? What truth? I called her immediately. No answer, I called my father. Straight to voicemail. I sent texts asking what was wrong. None delivered. By morning, I was blocked everywhere. That was the moment I realized something was terribly wrong. But I didn't yet know what had been taken from me. I hadn't dropped out of medical school. I was still enrolled, still attending rotations, still barely holding myself together through exhaustion, pressure and self-doubt like every other medical student. I was tired, yes, but proud. Becoming a doctor was the hardest thing I had ever done, and I was doing it. What I didn't know was that my sister had already rewritten my story for me. She told our parents I had dropped out of medical school, that I was ashamed, that I didn't want them to know. She said it with concern in her voice, with the practiced sadness of someone who knew exactly how to sound believable. And they believed her, completely. Within days, the consequences hit. My parents stopped paying the rent on my small apartment without warning. My health insurance was canceled. The tuition support they had promised vanished. When I asked extended family why no one was answering my calls, a cousin finally told me the truth in a hushed voice. Your sister said you quit med school. I felt sick. I tried to explain. I sent emails with proof, official enrollment letters, schedules, exam results. My sister stayed one step ahead, telling them I was lying, forging documents, spiraling under pressure. She cried to them about how worried she was about me. And my parents chose her version every single time. What hurt most wasn't the loss of money or comfort. It was the realization that my parents never asked me directly. They never gave me the benefit of the doubt. They didn't want to hear my side. The lie fit too neatly into their fears about me, that I was sensitive, that I dreamed too big, that I wouldn't last. Once they accepted that narrative, the truth became inconvenient. Eventually, I stopped trying to convince them, because begging to be believed by your own parents stripped something essential out of you. The next years were the hardest of my life. I worked extra shifts wherever I could. I slept on friends' couches, sometimes in hospital call rooms. When I couldn't afford rent, I ate cheap food and skipped meals. I cried in stairwells between rounds and washed my face before seeing patients. I kept going because quitting would have meant making my sister's lie real. And I refused to let my entire future be decided by something so cruel and false. I passed my exams. I matched into residency. I became stronger in ways I never wanted to be. On the day of my residency graduation, I stood in my cap and gown and scanned the audience anyway, even though I knew better. Every other name was followed by cheers, families standing to clap, parents crying with pride. When my name was called, there was polite applause from strangers. My parents weren't there. They didn't attend my residency graduation. They didn't call. They didn't text. I told myself I was used to it, but the ache didn't disappear. It just settled deeper. 2 years later, I got married. A small, simple wedding I paid for myself. I watched other brides hug their mothers, watched fathers walk daughters down the aisle, and felt the absence like a physical weight. When people asked where my family was, I smiled and said they couldn't make it. I didn't explain that my parents believed I was a failure. I didn't say that my sister's lie had erased me from their lives. I didn't say that I had learned how to celebrate milestones quietly, without witnesses. 5 years passed like that. 5 years of silence. 5 years of becoming a doctor anyway. I stopped waiting for apologies that never came. I focused on my patients, on doing good, on building a life that didn't depend on people who had already abandoned me. I thought I had made peace with it. I thought the past was sealed off, untouchable. Then, last month during a night shift, my phone rang from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was shaking, urgent. My sister had been rushed to the ER. Severe complications, life-threatening. My chest tightened. Not with satisfaction or revenge, but with something far more complicated. Blood doesn't disappear just because trust does. I stood there for a moment, staring at the wall, knowing I was about to walk straight back into the family that cut me off. I didn't yet know how fate was about to expose the lie that destroyed me, or how the truth I lived quietly for 5 years was about to walk into the room with me. I didn't know it was my sister when I accepted the case. The ER was loud and chaotic. The kind of night where alarms never seemed to stop and time blurred into urgency. The charge nurse handed me the chart, rattled off the details, and said the patient's name. My sister's name. For half a second, everything inside me went still. 5 years of silence, anger, and distance crashed into that single moment. Then training took over. I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask to be reassigned. I washed my hands, steadied my breath, and walked toward the room because no matter what she had done, a patient needed help. When I pushed open the curtain, I saw her lying on the gurney, pale and shaking, fear written across her face. Machines beeped in uneven rhythms, tracking a body in trouble. Standing off to the side were my parents. I almost didn't recognize them at first. They looked older, worn down by time and regret they didn't yet understand. My mother was gripping my father's arm tightly, her knuckles white. The moment she looked up and truly saw me, her eyes widened in disbelief. Her fingers tightened so hard around my father's arm that later it left bruises. When her attending physician walked in, my mom grabbed Dad's arm so hard it left bruises. The truth had just entered the room and it was wearing scrubs. No one spoke for a few seconds. My sister stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. My parents' faces drained of color as recognition slowly settled in. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't some cruel trick. I was standing there with my name stitched onto my coat, authority in my posture, years of work visible in every movement. The daughter they believed had failed was now the doctor, responsible for saving their other child. My sister told our parents I dropped out of medical school, a lie that got me cut off for 5 years. And now that lie had nowhere left to hide. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't accuse anyone. I focused on the monitors, on the symptoms, on the plan. I explained what was happening to my sister's body in clear, steady terms. I outlined the risks, the treatment, the next steps. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. Inside, everything was screaming, but years of discipline held it together. My sister started crying, not just from pain, but from the weight of the truth pressing down on her. She couldn't charm her way out of this. She couldn't redirect the story. Reality was louder. My father finally found his voice. "Evelyn?" he said, barely above a whisper. I looked at him and nodded once. The questions came fast after that. Was it true? Was I really a doctor? Had I really never dropped out? I answered calmly, yes, no, I never quit. I told them I tried to reach them. I told them they didn't attend my residency graduation or my wedding. I told them I stood alone on days that were supposed to be filled with family. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Each sentence landed with quiet force. My mother sank into a chair, sobbing, her hands shaking. My father stared at the floor like it might swallow him whole. My sister whispered apologies that sounded hollow, driven more by fear than remorse. I saved her life that night. Not because the past suddenly didn't matter. Not because forgiveness had magically appeared. I saved her because I am a doctor. Because my integrity didn't disappear when they turned their backs on me. After the crisis passed and the room grew quiet, my parents asked if we could talk. I told them the truth didn't need permission anymore. I told them forgiveness wasn't something they could demand after 5 years of absence. They apologized again and again. But apologies don't undo silence, missed milestones, or broken trust. When I walked out of the hospital at sunrise, exhaustion heavy in my bones, I felt something unexpected, clarity. I realized I didn't need their recognition to feel whole. The lie that cut me off for 5 years shaped me, hardened me, but it didn't destroy me. I built a life anyway. I became someone anyway. And sometimes, the strongest form of justice isn't revenge or anger. It's surviving, succeeding, and letting the truth speak for itself.